Brilliance and extreme modesty. And this is called Who Do You Love?
Who's speaking?
I don't know.
You didn't give us a name.
Yeah, Charlie Barnes. Ignore the man behind the curtain. Who do you love? We sure do say a lot when we say love, don't we? Use it to describe how we feel about our spouses, our families, our favorites of all kinds. Like, I love Paula. I love rock and roll. Maybe I love Steph Curry. I love a cold beer on a hot summer day.
Don't like that.
Come in.
No.
Talk loud.
We- Okay, maybe now it's good. No, I'm gonna forget that. We're gonna de-amplify, I'll just emote. Bo Diddley asks us, who do you love? Tina Turner asks, what's love got to do with it? Beatles tell us, all you need is love. I have heard that love is a many splendored thing, that love is strange, and also that love hurts. Know what? If you think about it, they can all be true simultaneously. There are many things you can say that about. When we speak of love, we're using a word that has roots in common with the Anglo-Saxon word liege, which is to say a pledge, and also from Anglo-Saxon, the word leaf, which means dear. Dear as in darling, not Bambi. We don't like Bambi. Lieu. That's an inside joke. Lieu, the Proto-Indo-European ancestor to our word, also gave rise to the words Liebe from German and the Dutch word liefde, both of which are terms of endearment. Which is all to say that our word love comes from an entirely different line of languages than Aramaic. Aramaic, the ancient language that was actually used by most people in the Middle East at the time of Jesus. Besides which, of course, our King James Bible was actually translated from Greek and Latin texts into English rather than directly from the language spoken. As in, for instance, when Jesus spoke, when in Matthew, Jesus replies to his questioner, that fellow that knew the law, that to love the Lord with your God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind was the greatest commandment. And that furthermore, the second commandment was to love your neighbor as yourself. The Aramaic word that he actually used was detram. Detram, with its Aramaic root, ram, R-A-H-M. Ram carries among its possible meanings the benevolent emotions of mercy and compassion. This is about the tenderness of God's love, a vast departure from many of the ancient Hebrew prophets and writers who signed God a harsh and demanding divinity. The word which has come to us as Lord has meaning in Aramaic suggestive of a primal energy rising up, shining, illuminating every aspect of this domain, this existence in which we all share, which we share as co-creators. This primordial energy, this Shem, beams its rays through the whole of creation. If we open our eyes to the Shem, we find awareness that this is a power which shines through each and every element of reality. We are not asked to love God separate from creation. Rather, Jesus asked us to see the one in all, in each and everything in its own particularity. Jesus asks us to do this with our whole heart. The word labat, which was the word used, denotes the center of our lives. This is our deep heart's core, that portion of ourselves that fuels our energies and our passion, that which fires our curiosity. He is saying here that from our innermost self, let us experience this deep connection with the source. Let us start from our interior shrine, that private space where only God can go. We express this not simply from our Aboriginal core, however. The word translated as soul, nafsha, is a central concept in Mideastern thought and is still found in Hebrew as nefesh and as nafs in Arabic. This soul, in the inherent psychology of the religious practice of the time, would be what we today call ego. We are being inspired to allow this ego to find its highest expression through cooperation with the living I am. It can almost be seen as a dance in which each partner, God and Nafsha, continually reflect each other. We are being exhorted to love from the uttermost depths of our soul, of our being. But this love is not simply directed outwardly. This essence we are to love shines from within each aspect of creation. We are not to be viewed as outside of creation, but as its co-creators. We are within, part of, and essential to the great, all-inclusive, living I am. Essential because it is we who experience creation and through our experience make it so. More than that, we are told to go beyond the love of God, or rather we are meant to express our devotion by directing it towards our neighbors, towards those mysteriously drawn together. We are meant to love not just God, and not to simply love ourselves because we are children of God, although we do often enough need to give ourselves a little love because we are children of the light. We are being told that we need to see the divine light, to see the Shem in every face we meet. A tough call sometimes. I know I've had people living next to me, and what they wound up in the trunk of Shirley and Thelma and Louise's car. I would have been like, karma. But even the most unpleasant, aggravating, or annoying people are every bit as deserving of love and kindness as those we are fond of. And they probably need it even more. It is a little bit like a story Daniel Goleman recounts in a book he co-wrote with the Dalai Lama titled Destructive Emotions. This story involves one of a member of a group of Tibetan monks came here to America to take part in a research project into the benefits of meditation. And there's one fellow in the group who was sort of guy that he's just everybody's favorite. Everybody always loves him, constantly genial person. And as part of this project, Mr. Congeniality was introduced to two members of the faculty at the campus where the study was conducted. One of these was the campus's most beloved professor. The other was the school's most notorious curmudgeon. When the two nice guys met, they got along famously, like long separated friends, even though they had just met. Meeting the grumpy professor, the going was a little rockier, but eventually the grump was relaxing a bit, smiling even, showing a hint of mellowing. When asked about the experience, the monk later replied, how nice the first conversation was, but the other one was much more difficult. Difficult, yes, but the dogged application of loving kindness overcame the initial reluctance. When asked about it, the grumpy guy responded that he had wanted to dislike his visitor, but just couldn't. This is what Jesus was talking about, saying that to love thy neighbor is to see them as valued co-creators in our shared reality. And not just because it may drive our enemies nuts, but because, well, for the good it does our own souls. This is the sort of soul work that Rumi is speaking of with his metaphor of polishing a mirror. It takes an effort. It requires a bit of psychic elbow grease to bring it to fruition, which work we take on in devotion, in cooperation with the Creator. And why, hey, a little elbow grease makes so many things go so much better, as I am learning. So Ram, with its connotations of mercy and compassion, is one word which, in going from one translation to the next, comes to us as love. As does the word ahib, the word Jesus uses in Luke when he tells those who came to question and those who came to hear. love your enemies. This word, ahud, looks more to the deeply mysterious nature of life, carrying meanings of the germ of a seed or the act of planting a seed. It goes further and can refer to sexual relation. This is not the breath of mercy, of compassion. This is the very life force permeating the cosmos, from galaxies to proteins, from its deepest foundations to the uttermost heights. The root word here of ahud is hab, H-A-B, a word which is still found widely used in Middle Eastern mysticism. Find it in the Sufi aphorism that God is the giver and receiver of love, as well as love itself. Mahabud, Lillah, in my faulty Arabic, God is the giver and receiver of love, as well as love itself. Isn't that a delightful turn of phrase? The word that comes to us as enemies in English translation does not carry connotations of being an evil. It translates as more of an obstacle or a stumbling block. Speaks of a person lacking an inner rhythm, someone it is difficult to fall into time with due to their harsh or jerky movements. Other meanings may derive and give the image of someone so inwardly vacuous and inane, so much of an inner void that they have begun to swell like a boil. I cannot think of any more succinct statement of the law of relationships. Love your enemies. From within your heart, from the labat, your deepest core, the space we clear out to make holy, find the mysterious force that brings new life and direct that love at anyone whose inner void pains them. This is not an admonition to allow this sort of shambling Mr. Hyde to walk all over us. We aren't being told to be weak or just give up in the face of all those swollen with bloating pain of their inner vacuity. Love them, yes. But that does not mean giving in to whatever they may be demanding in their rage. What our commandment is then, is to show our love of God in actions aimed at caring for those around us. We are not asked to love the other. We are told that there are no others. We are told that there is only us, as it says in the Gospel of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, I am you, and you are me, and we are all together. This commandment, love your enemy, is the core of the teachings of Jesus. He says to us, love the difficult ones, the ones obstructing the path you find yourself on. That brings up another story, another Tibetan monk. This guy was doing a pilgrimage around one of Tibet's sacred mountains. And at one point, the pilgrimage trail was found to be blocked by this huge fallen tree. It's a tree all slick with rain and mud, sort of obstacle that even the young and skinny had trouble getting over. This guy was neither. He does finally manage to struggle over after many attempts, much strain and effort. And before he turns to go, he gives the tree a friendly pat, giving the sort of obstacle a sort of thank you. That is the spirit we are being advised to go forth with. As for those who would gainsay or obstruct us, we need to be able to view them with kindness, with patience, lovingly, and to face our struggles and adversities with an equanimity rooted in faith. To be that person that makes people say, I wanted to dislike them, but I couldn't. Loving your enemies doesn't mean we have to agree with them. We may even vehemently disagree. What is called for is an ability to maintain a sense of the humanity of that other person, no matter how vacuous, how out of sync they seem to be. Jesus is saying that it is incumbent on us, me, you, individually. We all need to be open to the humanity of those with whom we find ourselves in opposition for whatever reason. God loves them as well, just as we are loved. So in closing, I'm going to read from Neil Douglas Platz's translations of these passages. I'm going to start by reading from the Aramaic, and excuse my accent. Detram Lemariah Alahak, Men Kule Levat, Wamen Kule Nafshat, Wamen Kule Elak, Wamen Kule Rahunak, Detram Lakriabak Ike Nafshat. From the deepest part of yourself, let be born for the rays of the one that shine around you. Let this come from your whole heart, the center of your life, your passion, courage, and audacity, and touch your whole subconscious self, that instinctive soul which scatters and gathers. From this self, liberate your whole animal energy and life force to flood your entire grasping mind with love. This is the most important command, the first creative movement that empowers all others. The second is like it. Draw a breath of compassion for the one mysteriously drawn to live near you. Love that friend as you love the self that dwells within the subconscious that sometimes feels separate and intruding. And also, Jesus said, Ahud and again, from a hidden place, unite with your enemies from the inside. Fill the inner void that makes them swell outwardly and fall out of rhythm. Instead of progressing step by step, they stop and start partially out of time with you. Bring yourself back into rhythm within. Find the movement that mates with theirs, like two lovers creating life from dust. Do this work in secret, so they don't know. This kind of love creates, it doesn't emote. Let us, each one, strive to be the expression of that love that creates. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Now, offering music, and we'll take our offerings in our